Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll examine the crisis facing retiring religious. Father Bob Curtis emphasizes the acceptance of those whose lifestyles may be different from our own. And if you're a parent, you won't want to miss our studio guest from the Archdiocesan Office of Catholic Education. We'll be discussing school choice. All this and more on tonight's Reel to Reel.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Paul Perillo.
And I'm Pat Shelton. Welcome back to a brand new edition of Reel to Reel. Tonight, our old friend, Father Bob Curtis, returns on our reflection segment. Well, he has a slightly new hairdo this year, but the same old sense of humor and philosophy and his wonderful faith.
We also hear about school choice and the groundswell of support for school choice. What does it mean for you? But first, we often hear about the rising cost of nursing home care. But very rarely do we hear about the retired religious and what it means for them. Well, a new program is underway, a drive as a matter of fact, and here is a report on what we can do to help them who have given us so much.
How would you react if suddenly you realize your nest egg for the future wasn't enough? The religious of the Catholic Church in America are facing that frightening realization. Religious congregations have a dramatic shortfall of retirement funds. Nationwide, that liability stands at $3 billion. Locally, the figure is at $82 million. This financial crisis first came to the public's attention when the results of the Retirement Needs Survey of the United States Religious was released in 1986.
Those studies indicated that due to the increasing number of elderly and retired and infirm religious and the insufficient retirement funding for that group, along with the fact that there are far fewer younger religious in congregations today than there were, for example, 20 years ago, we're finding that there just is not enough money in the savings and investments of religious communities to care for that increasing aging population. The cost of care for a retired woman religious, a sister, is about $10,000 a year. Religious congregations themselves must provide for the care of their retired people. Actually, what we're talking about in the care of an elderly or infirm religious is actual nursing home care. And I guess all of us know that the cost of nursing home care averages between $2,000 and $4,000 a month. So if religious congregations can care for their own at $10,000 a year, that certainly, I think, points to some very good financial management, first of all. And I think it also points to the simplicity of the lifestyle that religious lead.
The sisters that are retired now, like us, for a few years we're pretty well set. But then after that, we have no young ones coming in, and to help us out, to help our funds grow a little bit, and we'll have nothing to go on or live on or to pay people, and it's hard to get help to help us. We need help, and there isn't enough of our sisters to even help us sometimes. And you have to have nurses and nurses' aides, and you need money for that. And well, all through the years we worked for minimum wages, really, and we gave everything we had to our work and in our work and to the people. So I think we can ask now. We just have to ask for help.
The problem is that basically religious for many years worked for a type of payment called a stipend. And that was basically the only type payment that the church could afford at that time, because we worked for a poor church and an immigrant church. And that stipend, when we were getting many religious men and women, and we weren't thinking in terms of retirement in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s, was enough for what we had to do. It really wasn't enough, but we were able to manage on that amount of money, but we were not able to put aside any type of money for retirement needs. So now the many religious who ministered in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, as they come to retirement, there was nothing put aside.
The sisters living now, see, they have no income. They have no young people to work for them, and their own assets are all run out, you know. And so they have to depend on some other income from other people.
As long as there were a lot of younger people in religious communities who were bringing in wages, bringing in salaries, it didn't really matter if we had some elderly people who were unsalaried. But now that the imbalance is so acute between the wage earner and the non-wage earner, between the provider and the dependent, the problem is far more acute. And it's not so much, I don't think this drive is so much an issue of charity to religious communities as it is an issue of justice. And this is certainly one of the areas in the American church today that is most deserving of this attention.
I believe that we in the church, and as a religious woman myself, I have inherited a wonderful legacy from the sisters who went before us. And as I see us continue to minister to the new poor, all the different needs that are rising in our church and will come as we look at the year 2000.
And as far as I'm concerned, I have everything, and in the retired people, see, they're in a different place in this building, and and right now, as Sister said, they have plenty too, but that won't be true some years from now, because our assets will be running out, and then we'll need help, and we really need help, and there are people outside that need it very, very badly.
Well, if we had it to do over again, we'd do what we were doing for the people. And if we could now, even if we had the strength and the health and the energy to work, I think we would still be working. But we can't, so in our retirement, if we have no one to help us, we have to beg.
Well, I think there should be no reservations about helping to support an aging population of religious who have spent their entire lifetime in service to God and to us, Paul.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm. Now it's time for our reflection segment. Father Bob Curtis is here to prod our consciousness and to emphasize our acceptance of those who are not only different from us, but whose lifestyles are very different than our own.
Once through a social worker program, I spent a day with a prisoner, his first day out of prison. This was a program that tried to connect convicts with the outside world, and my job was to spend the first day out of prison with him. So I picked him up at the prison gate when he got out, and that was early in the morning. I stayed with him during his first day of so-called freedom. Well, in return, he decided to do me a favor and show me his world of heroin. I mean, that was the only thing he had to give me. And so he led me through this sinister maze of sickness, alleyways and gutters, sleazy hotels and desperate street corners, men and women nodding in their heroin stupor, filthy children on the verge of overdose, grasping with shaky hands their paper cups of methadone and orange juice. All these images are in my mind, and images of drug creatures entering convulsion, the final stages of their narcotic death dance. And all day, in my horror, I was thinking, my God, I live on separate planets from these people. An incredible gulf separates my antiseptic world of hope from their putrid world of abject hopelessness. They had no hope. What to do? Oh my God, what to do? Well, in the Old Testament, the prophet Amos spoke out against complacency, the complacency of prosperous people in the northern kingdoms who were failing to concern themselves with the problems of the people in the less fortunate tribes in the south. And through Amos, God warned the people that there will someday be an accounting demanded from those who are entirely self-serving. And St. Paul, in his letter to Timothy, reminds us of our commitment to be faithful to God's call. When Christ returns, he will judge our faithfulness in full knowledge of what we did and what we could have done. So you see, the point is we cannot shut our eyes to the people who live on these other planets. We want to shut our eyes to all that's horrible, but we can't. And the very least thing we can do is to keep our eyes open. If we keep our eyes open, maybe in some small way, some way will be revealed to us that we might help. On the day of judgment, it would be nice to be able to say, I didn't do all I should have done, but there were times when I did what I could.
Still ahead on Reel to Reel, we have our school choice discussion, the GI Bill for children, as well as the first installment of our Advent Meditation series. So please stay with us.
My life could have taken a different path. By the time I was 8, I'd won 13 dancing medals. But looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. Oh, I can't show you a big pile of money I've saved, but I can show you a school and a hospital and people. So many people. Saving money for ourselves just didn't seem right.
Give to those who showed us how.
What can you do about AIDS?
Love is what we need. The life that love can bring. Come take my hand and understand the answer is love. Love is what we need. Open up your heart and understand the answer is love.
Welcome back to Reel to Reel. It has been called the GI Bill for children. We have heard about it from the White House to the pulpit. The support is mounting for the school choice bill, a concept that parents should decide which school their children will attend. Here to discuss this issue with us is Bill McCusker, who is from the Office of Catholic Education for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
As I mentioned, we've heard the president talk about choice, we've heard the vice president talk about choice, as well as all the pastors talk about choice. When we refer to choice, what exactly are we talking about?
We're talking about educational choice. We're talking about providing the opportunity for parents to send their child to whatever school they think is best for them, to choose the school that's best for their child with some financial assistance from the government.
What brought about the whole issue of choice?
Well, what you have right now in the United States is a period of educational reform. And a number of the choice people believe that part of that reform should be opening up schools to parents that they would not be able to afford normally. With the help of government assistance, that would take care of that problem.
Now, currently, the state of Pennsylvania is considering legislation for choice. Is Pennsylvania the only state going this route? Are other states in the area or across the country considering similar legislation?
Presently, there's 30 states in the United States that are considering some type of educational choice legislation. What makes Pennsylvania unique is that we're the only state that the legislature is looking at to include schools of religious affiliations. That would be, for example, our Catholic schools, the Christian schools. So Pennsylvania is taking a very broad approach to this type of educational reform.
So basically the other states are only considering choice as to how it would refer or relate to the public schools?
That's correct. For example, in Minnesota, we're talking about educational choice that only involves the public schools.
Now, how would, first of all, a parent benefit from choice if the legislature would enact this choice legislation, as I'm sure we all hope the legislature will do? How will a parent benefit and how will that child benefit?
Well, a parent would benefit if we looked at the Pennsylvania program, which is House Bill 1133. The state would provide that parent with $900, Paul. Then the parent could take that $900 and apply it to the tuition at whatever school they chose. That would include public schools, parents who chose a public school out of their district or a private or religious school. And of course that would include the schools of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.
Would this legislation hurt the public school system, not only in Philadelphia, but let's talk about public school systems across the Commonwealth?
Well, our research indicates that it would really not hurt the public schools. Based on Gallup polls that have been taken, there are indications that somewhere between about 70 and 80% of the population is satisfied with the role the public school performs. Of the remaining percentage, approximately 15% of those folks would choose to send their child to some type of school other than a public school. So we don't think, in fact, that it would hurt the public schools at all. We think what it would do is enhance competition among schools and thus improve the whole educational system across the Commonwealth.
I'm sure the legislation is not designed to create competition between schools, be it public or Catholic. But could that happen? And could we see some schools closing or phasing out different grade levels or operations because of this?
I think very possibly we could see schools close as a result of this, both public schools and non-public schools. I think the approach we want to take here is this, that schools are going to close regardless. The approach that the Reach Alliance, the group in the state of Pennsylvania that's supporting this legislation, is taking is that it would be much better for education if a child's school closed because it was not academically challenging than if it closed because parents could not afford to send the child to that school.
Now, as we mentioned at the outset, the state of Pennsylvania, the legislature is considering this choice legislation. There's also, I guess, on the federal level, also choice legislation, but it will differ tremendously from what the lawmakers in Harrisburg are considering.
That's correct. The federal legislation, as President Bush is discussing it right now, would benefit certain model projects throughout the state, or throughout the country, where the program in Pennsylvania would benefit every parent and every child in the Commonwealth. At the moment, the Senate Committee on Labor and Human Resources is trying to block inclusion of non-public schools in any federal type of legislation. So we view that as a little bit of a problem at the moment.
Now, Bill, this choice legislation is different from what I remember when I was in grade school. I guess there was a move underway to get tuition reimbursement for parents. This is totally different.
This is totally different. The tuition reimbursement that we would remember from 20 or 25 years ago basically took the form of tuition tax credit, which the courts have ruled unconstitutional. We believe that this measure, the GI Bill for Kids, would be ruled constitutional because it would function the same way the GI Bill functioned and the FIA grants in the state of Pennsylvania function right now.
Bill McCusker from the Office of Catholic Education from the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, spending some time talking with us about the choice education legislation pending in Harrisburg, as well as what's being done in Washington, D.C. on a much smaller scale basis. And I'm sure we have not heard the end of the whole matter of choice in terms of education. In a moment, we will have more on Reel to Reel, including the first segment of our meditation series for Advent. Please stay with us.
Set materials for Reel to Reel provided by Tague Lumber Incorporated, serving the Delaware Valley for over 75 years.
So, Casanova, do you know what time it is?
Sometimes the best friend is an old friend.
Hi, Mrs. Christo. These are for you.
Beautiful.
Make an old friend.
Not all missions are foreign. North Carolina, for example, is only 2% Catholic, and parts of Arkansas are even less. In America's missions, people survive in tiny sheds of rotting wood with no electricity or running water. Their poverty and isolation made worse because the church is not there to sustain them. Since 1905, Catholics across the country have been part of the missionary work of the Church through their gifts to the Catholic Church Extension Society. Your gifts help sisters care for the sick and poor, provide catechism lessons and campus ministry. Your gifts also build small mission chapels and help rural parishes survive. To find out how you can bring hope to America's Forgotten Home missions and to receive a free introduction to Extension Magazine, write Mission America, care of Extension, 35 East Wacker Drive, Chicago, Illinois, 60601.
We welcome your comments, suggestions, and donations and encourage you to write us at Reel to Reel, St. Charles Seminary, 1000 East Wynwood Road, Overbrook, PA 19096, or call us during regular business hours at 668-9842.
On this first Sunday of Advent, as we prepare for the first coming of Christ, let's pause for a moment for an Advent meditation.
My heart, O Lord, is a lonely place. Anxieties and worries and desires rush through my heart, but they come to nothing and leave me empty. Across the centuries, I hear the haunting cry of Isaiah, "A child will be born for you." I hear the cry of the angels, "I bring you tidings of great joy. A Savior is born for you." Only you can fill the emptiness of my heart. You come again and again. Why am I never ready? Why do I love you without passion? Why am I afraid of commitment to you? Afraid of the one intimacy that can make me cry out with joy? I offer you my loneliness, my emptiness, my need. They are my only claim upon you. Awaken my heart to your advent, to your new coming to us. Stir up the cold fire of my love.
Time now to pause for our occasional respite from the hectic whirl around us. Time to relax and enjoy and listen to Stable Song.
Children
Shadows and shadows, suddenly they break forth into morn. Sing out and tell now, all shall be well now. For in the stable Jesus is born.
Well, talk about stopping and smelling the roses. I think we just did that literally as well as figuratively. And as the season begins to hustle and bustle even more, Paul, I hope our audience appreciates nice pauses in the routine like that.
I think it's always great just to step back every once in a while and just say, time out.
Yeah,
I need a dream check, more or less. We hear about reality checks so many times, but every once in a while it doesn't hurt just to step back and just suck in everything that's out there, especially now. It's the first Sunday of Advent, and you know what that means. There's only about 23, 24 more days left to get all that Christmas shopping done.
Yes, indeed. And as the father of 2 little girls,
that's right,
you're going to be very busy in the next few weeks.
Santa has had his list for quite some time now.
They've already got the list.
Yes,
and
they of course, every doll that they see on television, they won for Christmas. So.
But it's fun.
Most definitely.
As long as we remember to keep Christ in Christmas.
Jesus is the reason for the season.
Well, that's all for tonight, everyone. We hope you'll be with us next week for another edition of Reel to Reel. Until then, so long for now. I'm Pat Shelton.
And I'm Paul Perella. We'll see you right here again next time on Reel to Reel. Have a good week.
Each Sunday you hear about charismatic events.
Yet you might know little about this powerful work of the Spirit.
Monsignor Walsh wrote, "Prepare my people just for you." The book explains the basic truths in easy-to-understand words.
Prepare my people will be the door to your experiencing the Spirit.
To order, just call 896-1970. Experiencing the Spirit is for everyone.